Okay, so we're continuing in the mishnat sofrim on the shapes of the letters. So we saw last time Aleph through Hey, so we'll continue with Vav. I'll try to use the addition of Oz ve'Hadar. You know, they have the Mishnah Berurah HaMevoar, and I have access to it on Orach Chaim.
That's the one I use normally, yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's very good. So let's use that. And I'll also skip to the other one as well, because it shows also the Sfaradi version. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Okay, אות ו' צריך להיות ראשה קצר, שרוחב גגה לא יהיה יותר מעובי קולמוס כדי שלא תידמה לריש. In other words, what they're talking about here, it's very nice, is that the width of the roof of the vav will be just one width of a kulmus. Why? Because if you make it too long, it will end up like a reish. So you have to make it short. ורגלה ארוך כעובי שני קולמוסים כדי שלא תידמה ליוד. But the leg, what we see here, has to be the length of two kulmusim, because if you make it too short, it will look like a yud. ולא יעשה ארוך יותר מדי, פן תידמה לתינוק לנון פשוטה. But you can't make it too long, because then it will end up like a nun sofit. Okay? So Vav is a very precarious letter. If you make the roof too long, it will end up like a reish. If you make the leg too short, it will end up like a yud. If you make it too long, it will end up like a nun sofit. So you have to apply the Goldilocks rule. Just do it in the middle to just get it just about right. Okay. ומטעם זה, גם כן טוב שתהיה ראשה עגולה לצד ימין, כדי שלא תידמה לזין. Okay, in the top of it, he's talking about here, it should be curved. It shouldn't be square like this. It should be rather curved. Why? Because if you make it square, it could end up looking a bit like a zayin. Now, even though that's not exactly a zayin, right? Because as he says, because the zayin, the roof goes out on this side as well, right? As we'll see a picture of a zayin here, the roof of it goes out beyond the leg. Nevertheless, since a zayin is square, a vav could end up looking like a zayin if you make it square. So therefore, the chatila, it's not nakev, but the chatila, it should be curved here. Okay. Upaneha yeh shaveh velo be'alachzon. Okay, and this part of it should be straight and not diagonal. Here is a picture of how it would look if it was diagonal. So not that, rather we make it straight like this. Okay. העגלה תהיה פשוט תחתיה בשווה לא שבור באמצע. גם טוב שעוביה תתמעט והולך מעט מעט עד שתהיה חדה למטה. Okay. So it should be straight. It shouldn't be broken, like going wider or thinner, etc. Except for here at the end, you make it thin so that it ends up with something sharp at the end. Okay, that's not ma'akev, but the chatchila, that's the way it's done. Let's say you made the vav short. Okay, I see on the WhatsApp group of Sofrei Stam that I joined, they often have this problem that sometimes the vav ends up a bit short or a bit long. So what's the rule as follows? Pasul. Okay, in other words, if it's only the length of a yud, then it's definitely pasul, because that's not a vav. Okay, and in that case, you don't even show it to a tinok. If all you did was the length of a yud, then it's not a yud, it's not a vav. And if it's tefillin mezuzot, and you've already written further, you cannot go back and fix it. In a Sefer Torah, obviously you can fix it and just make it longer. If it's a bit longer than a yud, tzarich le'arot latinok. Okay, so you show it to a boy if he reads it as a vav or as a yud. If it's a bit longer than a yud, but not quite the length of a vav.
I actually had a question with the tinok part.
Yeah.
Does it have to be a boy, or could it also be a girl?
Good question. I mean, it makes
because
sense.
it was very, very simple. Like, for example, like when it says Kishot to Tinok, it assumes that somebody who can read but doesn't know the psukim by heart, so to speak, right? That's the whole logic behind it.
Right, exactly.
So in that age here, probably like the best candidate for that would be my daughter.
I'll look into it. Bisvara, I don't see why not. I mean, she's not.
Yeah, there's no part of Nemanus or any kind of thing like that. I mean,
Yeah, it's just to see how a child would read it. Again, somebody
Yeah.
who, on the one hand, can read the letters, but is not biased. You know, like as adults, because we know what the word is supposed to be, we automatically, you know, our eyes deceive us. So I don't see why. I don't think it matters if it's a boy or a girl. I'll try to see if anybody addresses it. This question, though. Probably not too many children that read Hebrew, unfortunately.
Oh, to be that fluent, yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's see. This is also another case where you would show a tinok, is if you made the roof too wide, and it might end up looking like a reish. So again here, and again, any of these cases where it is the shape of the letter, but really the problem is that it might appear like a different letter, that's the cases where we employ a tinok. Im katav dalid bimkom vav, right? Let's say you wrote, instead of a vav, you wrote a dalid. Tzarich ligror kol hagag, right? So it's not enough, you can't just erase the extra part of it, which makes it look like a dalid or a reish, because that would be chak tochot, again, because you're creating the vav essentially by erasing. So he says, so you need to erase the entire roof and then rewrite the roof. And then he says, in other words, the question here, this is a business which is not completely clear to me, but again, we saw this several times in the Mishnah Berurah already, that he says you have to erase everything that was written b'psul. So the question is, what was written b'psul? Is it considered just the roof was written b'psul because I made it too long? Or because it's sort of one continuous letter, as opposed to some letters which are made from different parts, like an aleph is made from 3 separate parts which are attached. But here it's sort of one continuous letter, the dalid or the reish, then perhaps it's considered as if it was all written b'psul and I need to erase the entire thing and rewrite the vav. So that's what. So he's machmir on this point, and he says, if I made the roof too long and it ended up looking like a dalid or a reish, then I need to erase the entire thing and rewrite it as a vav. Again, in cases where I can fix, where it's not a problem with kesidra, and like I haven't written further, or in a sefer Torah. Okay, let's just quickly take a look at the vav of the Sfaradim. Sfaradim is quite similar. It's also curved. Really, the only difference is that they do a like a kotz here on the top of the vav, as opposed to Ashkenazim that just have it flat. Sfaradim have this kotz on the upper left side of the vav. Also, they say here that they don't make it as sharp at the bottom as the Ashkenazim do. Okay, let's see the Zayin now. זין. עוד זין צריך להיזהר שלא תהיה רגלה ארוכה, שלא ידמה לנון פשוטה ותיפסל על ידי קריאת תינוק, אבל כן לא יהיה רגלה ארוך יותר משני קולמוסים. Again, the length of a zayin just is same as the length of the vav. 2 קולמוסים, if you make it too longer, again, it might end up looking like a נון סופית. וראשה צריך להיות עובר משני הצדדים, כדי שלא תידמה לבד. Okay, and the head of it extends on both sides of the leg, right? And that's what differentiates it from a vav. The הראש מרובע, right? The head of the zayin is also square on all ends. It's not curved, it's square. ורגלה תהיה פשוט תחתיה לא שבורה, right? And again, the leg is straight, it's not it's just straight. ויש שעושים הקו התחתון דק ביציאה והולך ומתהווה עד חציה ומחציה חוזר ומתמעט עד שתהיה חדה למטה. But some have it Here they have a picture of it, that it goes down, becomes wider, and then becomes thinner at the end. Okay, that's not makiv. ואם נתקצרה הרגל מזין דינו כמו שכתבנו באות ו'. If I made the leg of the zayin too small, too short, then the halacha is like by the vav. And by the vav we said, if it's only the length of the yud, it's pasul. If it's slightly longer, then you show it to a tinok. Okay? But if it's only the length of the yud, it's completely pasul. Okay, and then he says here, although there is an opinion that is chodek, he says, as long as it's read as a zayin, even if it's short, he's like a yud, it's fine. He says, that no, if it's only the length of the yud, it's pasul. Doesn't matter if it's read as a zayin or not, it has to be slightly longer. He says, and secondly, thirdly, if you showed it to a tinok and he did not read it as a zayin, that's definitely a pasul. Right, so again, if it's only the leg is only the length of the leg of a yud, one kulmus, then he says you can't fix it if you've written further in tefillin mezuzot. So only if it's slightly longer than a yud, then if it appears like a zayin, which likely it will. Why will it likely appear like a zayin even though the leg is short? Because again, the top of it extends to both sides. Then it probably won't appear like a vav or a yud. Then it's fine. Okay. Now in Ktav Sfaradi, just very slight differences on the zayin. By the way, a zayin has 3 tagim, as we know on top. Ktav Sfaradi, the difference is that first of all, they don't. Ashkenazim usually put it like the leg right in the middle of the square. Sfaradim have it a little bit to the side. Okay, but that's not makiv. Even if you don't get a dead center, it's fine as long as it extends for both sides. Also, some have the head a bit slanted.
Tilted.
Yeah. Tilted. Okay. Now, let's see the fabulous letter chet, which creates a lot of complications. Okay. אות ח' תהיה שתי רגליה כתמונת שני זיינים. So the letter chet is basically comprised of 2 zaynim, twice a zayin, which are connected by a roof. There's a proof for this from the Gemara, that the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat speaks about somebody who took off the roof of the chet, and thereby he's created two zaynim, and that's considered as if he wrote 2 letters on Shabbat, because for you to be chayav on Shabbat for melachot, you have to write a minimum of 2 letters. So the Gemara gives that example of taking off the roof, and by that creating 2 zaynim. Okay, there's a big question on that Gemara, because if you just take off from the roof, again, you've created the 2 zaynim by erasing, so that runs against the rule of chak tochot. All the Rishonim there discuss that, but what does come out from the Gemara is that the shape of the letter chet is combined, is 2 zaynim, which are combined by a roof. That's the proof. Okay, now he says, והזין שבצד ימין, נכון לעשותו קרן ראשו עגול בצד ימין. Okay, he says, even though usually a zayin is square, here by a chet we make the right zayin at its right corner round, and the left zayin is square. Okay. Again, why? Because we do want to differentiate it from a zayin, so we slightly make it different by curving the righter zayin, and that's why it's indicating that this is going to be a chet and not a zayin. Okay. Again, not מעכב, but לכתחילה that's the way it's done. ויהיו הזיינים רחוקים זה מזה לכל היותר כאובי קולמוס. You don't want to make the distance between the zaynim too long, so you only make an ovi kulmus space in between the 2 of them. That's what they indicate here in the picture. ויהיו שני הזיינים מחוברים בחטוטרת יחדיו, ומקל יעשה לה בראש השמאל ולא באמצע הגב. Okay, this here is a machloket Rashi in Rabbeinu Tam, and we sort of do both. The Gemara speaks about a chatoteret on the zayin, and there are two interpretations as to what that means. According to Rashi, it means that on the left part of the roof of the chet, you have like a tag, like a line coming up, and that's this. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it means that the roof of the chet, instead of it being flat, it should be like a how do you call it on a camel?
Heap.
The what?
Heap. No? H-E-A-P.
I forgot. I didn't hear. What did you say?
A heap.
Heap?
I think so.
All right. In Hebrew, it's called like a debeshit. Anyway, you get the idea. In other words, according to Rashi, really the roof of the chet should be flat. The connector between the two zayin should be flat. But according to the Rabbeinu Tam's interpretation, it's a chatoteret. In other words, it goes up and down like a triangle shape. Okay, so we do both. In other words, in our chet, we do both Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi. We make the connection between the two zayinim with a chatoteret, again going up and down, and also we make a tag on the left ear roof of the zayin. Okay. And now he says, וצריך להיזהר שלא יאריך בגג החטא, ואם האריך, פסול. Okay, now here they explain as follows. There are different ways that it could happen. Okay, if you make the distance between them too big, it loses the appearance of a chet. However, if that's only if you did it like a chatoteret, right? Going up and down, and then with the two zayinim, if it's too large, it doesn't appear like a chet. However, if you would not do a chatoteret like Rabbeinu Tam, you would make just a flat roof to the chet, which is the opinion of Rashi, and it is kasher b'di'evid. Even if it was very wide, it would still look like a chet. So this case would actually, what you see here in picture pei bet, would actually be b'di'evid kasher. Okay, this case, where I sort of made like a daled and a zayin, also it still appears like a chet. In other words, this case, it doesn't really look like a chet at all. It just looks like two zayinim with some sort of unclear line connecting them. But this still has more of the appearance of the chet, so this also would be b'di'evad kasher. Okay, that's what here the Mishnah Berurah continues to say. He says, ואין לו תיקון בתפילין ומזוזות משום שלא כסדרן. באמת דברים האמורים שעשה שני זיינים וגב רחב, וזה לא הביא כמין חטוטרת שהוא משופע. אבל אם עשה החטא כדעת רש"י בלא חטוטרת שעל גגה, then that's kasher b'di'evad. Okay, and that's this. אם עשה החטא כתמונת שני ו"ים, או כדלת ו' או כדלת זין, וחטוטרת על גבם, כאשר בדיעבד שהרי לא נשתנה לצורת אות אחר על ידי זה. Okay, so if you make the chet like two vavim, instead of two zaynim, you make it two vavim with a chatoteret, or you make it like a dalet vav with a chatoteret, or a dalet zayin with a chatoteret. In all these cases, since it still appears like a chet, okay, not a very nice chet, but it's still read as a chet, then all these cases are also kasher b'di'evad. Okay, however, he says, ומכל מקום, אם אפשר לתקן לגרור יתרון האות והחטוטרת תישאר במקומו, כגון בחטא שתמונתו היה כדלת זין והחטוטרת שלו נעשית באמצע הדלת ולא בסופה, יגרום מן הדלת מקצוע עד שתעשה כמו זין. In other words, in this case, where I have like a dalet zayin, but the chatoteret is here in the middle of the dalet, so I can erase this edge of the dalet and make it look more like a zayin. So I should do that. Okay. אבל אם עומד בסופה, יחלק האות שיגרר מן הדלת, לא יהיה לו תיקון אחר כך בתפילין ומזוזות שמעכב בין שלא כסדרן, כן יש להכשיר בלא תיקון. However, like in this case, if I made the chatoteret at the end of the dalet, so by erasing this part of the dalet, I will have disconnected it from the chatoteret. And then I will have to reconnect it, and then I'm getting again into a problem שלא כסדרן by תפילין ומזוזות. Again, the Sefer Torah, all these things are usually much more easily fixed. Okay, that's what he says here. בספר תורה, אם נמצא חטא שתמונתו היה כדלת זין או שני ו"ים, אף שאין להוציא אחרת משום זה, so if you're in the middle of reading the Torah, you don't have to take another Sefer Torah out because it is kasher בדיעבד. מכל מקום, בכל גבני צריך לתקן האות עד שיעמידנו על תמותה הראויה. So then it should be fixed and turned into proper two zaynim with החטוטרת, וצריך להזהיר הסופרים על זה, כי תמונת החטא שכתבנו למעלה יש לו עיקר גדול בתלמוד ועמדו עליו גדולי הראשונים. That's what he said בגמרא במסכת שבת, about that if you take off the roof of the chet, you've turned it into two zaynim. Okay? ודע עוד, בדיעבד אם עשה להחטא מקל לבד או חטוטרת לבד, in other words, if I made a flat roof, like the Shita of Rashi, with the makel, the stick at the end, or I just made the chatoteret, in other words, just followed Rabbeinu Tam, it's kasher. והגאון רבי עקיבא איגר מסיק בחידושיו, דאפילו נחסר להחטא התותרת וגם המקל, שהיה חטא פשוטה כחיטים שלנו, kasher בדיעבד. In other words, even this, which doesn't have a chatoteret, it doesn't have the makel, because again, that whole Gemara is just lechatchila. So even if I did neither Rashi nor Rabbeinu Tam, it's kasher b'di'evet. He says, רק אם אפשר לתקן בקל, לעשות למקל, יעשה דאבל לכתחילה. To add a makel, that's easy. We just add it here. Chototeret is more complicated because we would have to erase and rewrite, and then you're getting again into a problem shelo kesidran. But just to add the makel, if for some reason somebody made a flat chet like this, then that you can do. אם נפסק ירך החטא ולא נשאר בו, רק אם לא יהיו די בכך, בין בירך הימני או השמאלי, right, in other words, by the chet, even if I'm left only with a length of a yud on one of the sides, it's still kasher b'di'evet because it cannot be any other letter. It has to be a chet. It cannot be any other letter like a yud or a zayin because of the chatoteret connecting it to this side. So this is kasher b'di'evet, even if the legs of the chet are not even and one of them is shorter than the other. Again, it has to have at least some distance, like at least a yud, but that's all you need. Let's just take a quickly look at the Sephardi chet. Let's see if there's any difference there. Okay, Sfaradim, I mean, they make the tag here in the middle, not at the end like the Ashkenazim. They do make a little indent here at the end, but they put the tag in the middle. Maybe they make the chatoteret a little bit. They also say here that there used to be minhag of the Sfaradim to just do it flat like Rashi without the chatoteret at all. So you might see some old Sifrei Torah that have the chet in that fashion. They didn't do the chatoteret, and again, like we said, that's kasher b'di'evet. Here they say, interestingly, if you make the chatoteret round or square, not a diagonal, it's also kasher. Also, if you made it a flat line, all these cases are all kasher b'di'evet because it still has the shape of the chet, again, with some sort of connector on the top, even though it's not the, chatchila shape that we do, like a Rabbeinu Tam's interpretation of this two diagonals. Any questions, comments still here?
No.
All right, very good. Shkoyach. So